Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. It's Fraser Waldron here. I want to talk about identity and how that can be useful, but also can be a negative in your life, and how to make sure that by staying in the moment, you can observe whether you're stuck in the past or you're stuck in the future in a negative way. So I'm going to tell you a story about me personally, and then you can take this and relate it to yourself. Just before I begin, I apologize in advance because I'm in Bali. I'm sweating. It's hot because there's no AC here, and in my villa, anyways, and it's a loud place, so there's sometimes cars driving by. So if you hear something, I apologize for that in advance. Okay, so here's the story. I've always identified as a person who handles money well. Okay, so since I've been 18, I've been trading stocks and doing investments. I actually wrote a book on this. I spend 2-3 hours a day on investing. That includes like venture capital side of pursuits. Includes investing like long-term over geography, sector, currency, etc., like long-term investing, as well as trading in different capacities, including position trading, swing trading. I've done it all. Okay, day trading. I've done it all. So I'm a big nerd on this stuff. I super enjoy it. However, I've always worked as well in parallel. So I've had an investment side and a law enforcement side. And when I've worked for Interpol, I've worked for all these different police agencies, and I was working for a cryptocurrency exchange doing investigations into sanctions and counterterrorism financing, and they had a series of layoffs, and I did not survive the cut. I was the most junior guy in the team, and they wiped out a good chunk of the team, and I just got sucked out of that, and that was it. So I was unemployed, which is totally fine. I've been in that situation before, and if anything, it's actually relief for various reasons. But I was not upset by the event occurring. I had my stoic philosophy to reframe things in a meaningful way, and I was like, yeah, I'm good, everything's fine. So 1 month went by, had a good time. I was on vacation at the time, so everything was good. I had budgeted for that. Second month went by. Now I'm looking for other things to do. Again, my investments are good and everything's fine. And then I'm starting to panic a little bit. And then by the third month, I'm essentially a wreck, which is crazy. I have not had a job, or I've never been in a scenario where for over 3 months I haven't been making some sort of income. But in theory, if I wrote it down paper, I essentially never have to work again. My investments, I've been really diligent in investing, and I'm in a position where I can live essentially forever without ever having to work again. And that's like, I'm aware of that consciously. Again, not balling on the beach like yachts and stuff, but I can definitely maintain a certain lifestyle over essentially forever without touching my investments, because my investments kick off enough income that I can live off that. So I've got no worries. I've got no issues at all. My parents are very nice, and they said, Fraser, you can stay at home if you need for as long as you want. So I am essentially in this beautiful position where I can pursue anything for as long as I want. I could live at home and go back to school. I could go back into the law enforcement side. I could just do finance full time and make lots of money. It's all good. But psychologically, I was not good. And I couldn't really understand why, because I was like, man, if I'm not making income, like like I'm a loser, like all these crazy thoughts. And I kept reframing things because I'm good at that. That's a part of my wheel of misfortune philosophical framework. So I kept reframing, I kept readjusting, making it meaningful, etc. And I was just like, man, why is this happening? And then I realized that I was kind of stuck in this identity, which I generated from the past. Because for this long period of time, I was like, I'm the guy who's good at money. I'm the dude who's like good at investments. I give advice on this professionally, like I educate people on finance professionally. So the idea of that identity was essentially being challenged in this context. Even though I was totally safe, everything was fine. There's no bear at the door. I'm totally fine. I could live in Bali, for example, forever. Like, it's very cheap, right? I could move back to my parents' house if God all else fails. Even if the stock market dropped a lot, I'm fine. I can go for 20 years with no job, no problem. But psychologically, I was in like max pain. Like, I even started to get like a rash on my hands. Sometimes when I get stressed, I get like this kind of like eczema rash kind of thing. And this was really interesting to me. And so eventually I looked into, I discovered that I essentially had created this shadow identity where I had metriced myself by being financially successful in my own narrow little prison. So I had essentially created a prison by which I was comfortable if things were going well. But if I went outside of the box, then I was in extreme suffering. And I've had this same phenomena occur before in other situations. One time, for example, when I hurt my back, I identified with my past of being quite athletic and extrapolated that into the future. So if I couldn't be athletic in the future, then who was I? And that was painful. And this was just another example where in the financial realm, in the past, I was perceived myself as financially a savant or sophisticated or successful, whatever the hell that means. And then because my future was not guaranteed per se, of course it never is, because you don't control outcomes, and I believe that from the core of my being, I'd created essentially like a pain body, an Eckhart Tolle, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, Tolle pain body, which is I had over-identified with my thoughts over a long period of time and just hadn't realized it. So once I had discovered that, or had awareness, I kind of zoomed out of myself. I said, why am I having this irrational stress response to a situation that is kind of not that stressful, given my context? Everything's fine in my life. Everything's good. I'm healthy. Everything's fine. And why am I having this extreme stress response? Essentially, it was because I'd created an identity off of a narrative that wasn't even true. Maybe I'm not that good at finance. Maybe it doesn't even matter. The past is unknowable to an extent, right? Because it's like my memories, it's my subjective memories. I've probably failed more in finance than I've won. I've probably made more mistakes than anyone, So even my narrative is potentially wrong. Maybe I'm just average at finance. Who cares? It doesn't really matter. The point is that I had an identity that I generated, and then as soon as my future didn't look like it was going to fit that identity, I was in suffering. And the antidote to that was being in the present moment, focusing on the moment and going, why am I having this thought? And looking back at myself. And that's sort of a, mindfulness practice. And as soon as I had awareness of this thought, that it was a bit irrational to hold this identity, I was like, well, I'm going to recalibrate. So essentially I did some cognitive behavioral therapy where I said, the thought in my mind is I'm not financially successful or whatever. And then I go, how does that make me feel? Stressed. Cool. And then I wrote, okay, well, is that true? And the answer is no, because as I've described. And I thought, okay, that's relieving. And then what's my new sentence? I don't need a salaried job to be financially successful. And then as soon as I did that, I was like, oh, the problem's solved. And now I'm in a relaxed state and I'm carrying on with my business as I would normally, or as I expected myself to do. So I guess this is a key thing where it's like your life will take weird turns because entropy exists. It won't meet your expectations. And the identity you've given yourself, even though I try to remove identity as much as possible, the identities you've framed for yourself will sometimes interact well with the world and sometimes not. So you can be like me and give yourself like stress hands, or you can readjust and pivot to a mindset that where you can look back at yourself and then say, is this narrative true? Is it useful? Can I reframe it to be better? And then if the answer is yes, just reframe it and off you go. And the key for me was that I was mindful in the sort of form of Eckhart Tolle, Sam Harris, that kind of mindfulness. And that allowed me to look back at myself, change the narrative, address it, and then with some cognitive behavioral therapy, i.e. changing the underlying narrative to feel less stressed. And now I'm moving through my day just as I was, 2 months ago or 3 months ago. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I'm sure if it's happening to me, it just happens to other people. And this is how I've addressed it. And I went from a 10 out of 10 max pain. Again, I'm in Bali. Everything's lovely. Like the weather's good. Everyone's friendly. When I walk to the grocery store, everyone's smiling. But in my brain, I was like, I'm a loser. Just extreme stress. And that's how I solved that problem. I reframed the narrative. And then within a day or two, essentially my brain had rewritten that entire identity to be like, the financial success of me is not based on my current situation. It's just the decisions I made in the past and the decisions I make about the future. So I'm in the moment. It completely rewrote that narrative for me. And I hope that that's useful for you. So I just wanted to share that. Hope you have a great day and I'll catch you on the next video.